Sing it, bitch!
Michael Randy was little the day the earth stood still. But he told us
You fuck off!
where we stand
On your knees!
Flash Gordon was there and Sutherland aware. Claude Rains was the invisible man.
But he never showed up.
Then something went wrong for Fay Ray
Fuck King Kong!
They got caught in a cellular jam.
My favorite kind! Shannon's face!
And this is how the message ran.
3, 2, 1! Starring as God. Hey, look, it's a slut on heroin. And fucking and sucking on. Harder, deeper, faster, forget it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, freaks and geeks of all ages and sizes, welcome to the Rocky Horror Picture Show! That is what I like to hear, ladies and gentlemen. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, enter my theater of misfit toys!
When we met in his science examine, made me give you the eye and then panic. Now I've one thing to say, and that's
Caskets! Caskets! I love caskets!
Hey, it's an asshole wall.
I wanna screw Winnie the Pooh!
The stage show was very popular, and it was like intentionally, like it's obviously intentionally quirky and weird, and like satirizes horror movies and stuff like that. Campy, but my understanding is that like the stage show was written. Richard O'Brien did the stage show in England, and it was like very popular there. But England and America sort of have this history of like not really understanding each other's brand of humor. So it didn't really, the show didn't really catch on as much here. And so then when the movie was released, it was a great success in Britain, but then when they brought it here, they didn't know what the hell to do with it. So they just started showing it at midnight just to see like if they could make any money off of it. And then I think that like people in that theater that started getting up in New York City and like started performing along to the movie were sort of like creating cult things in a way, like right then and there. So I don't think that the creators really knew at all that this was going to happen. I think it just sort of is this wonderful thing that just happened to be, and we're all so happy that it did.
I started playing Frank this past February of 2012. I actually got thrown into the role at the last minute. There was like no one else to play Frank, and Tom, our cast director, he was just like, well, Val can do it. You know, she can just wear my corsets. And, you know, Tom, he's like 3 or 4 sizes bigger than me. So I basically had to safety pin all of his corsets, and the sweet tea corset looked like a vest. But I just remember it was the coolest thing ever. I got to play Frank finally. And I had to learn the blocking in like 3 days.
I'm just a sweet transvestite. Transsexual. Transylvania. Let me show you around. Maybe play with a sign.
What's the sign?
You look like you're both good at grooving. Or if you want something visual, that's not too abysmal.
A soft porno?
We could take it at old Steve
That
Reeves
doesn't
movie.
sound like a porno.
I'm glad we caught you at home.
Where else would you
Could we use your phone? We're both in a bit of a hurry. We'll just say where we are, then go back to the car. We don't want to...
Right now I'm in college. I'm starting my senior year at Marymount Manhattan College. I'm majoring in art therapy and in studio art. So right now it's just finishing up school and applying for graduate schools, but I'm just chilling in New York and doing Rocky Horror, and I do a little bit of costume work on the side. I help cast members here sort of work on their costumes and that sort of thing. Some of the stuff I make based on my own designs. And I came here with my family as for like the Harry Potter book release, and I just remember being just baffled by the awesomeness of the city, and there's just so much stuff to do and so much life and so much energy. And I also have a visual impairment that makes it impossible for me to drive, so I can't drive cars at all. So North Carolina, it was just really hard for me to get around. I was stuck in my room all day. So the mass transit is awesome, and just the fact that that combines with the multiple opportunities, it was like the place for me. It was like my dream location.
I moved to New York City around 2004, and I had been doing Rocky in Philadelphia and some other places, like all across the nation, all across the globe, so to speak. But when I moved here, I took a year off to find a job, because I knew if I ever joined the Rocky cast that I would spend all my time doing that and I would never actually find actual employment. So I went out and I found employment, and I also started working with a few theater companies. And then around February of 2005, I showed up in my full Brad costume, and one of the guys who is currently in the cast now came up to me and said, "Oh my God, that's perfect," and pulled the cast director over and it's like, "You got to see this guy." It's like, his glasses are turquoise. He has turquoise Brad glasses. This guy's the real deal. You got to bring him in. You got to bring him in.
I knew that like it was a movie that they played and like stuff happened in the theater. So no, I didn't know that it was like quite as like raunchy sometimes, I guess, or just that people got like the sexual end of it was like it was new to me. But I learned to like it, and well, I mean, I did like it. Like I've always thought it was awesome. Once you're involved in it for a while, it becomes like less shocking, obviously, but people find ways to to make it interesting.
We had a couple that was in the bathroom, and one of our staff members walked into the bathroom and they could hear from the stall. So he knocks on the stall door, and they open the stall door, and the girl turns to him and says, "Hey, do you want to join in?" And so everybody in the lobby is like freaking out about this. So the staff member comes to us and he tells us, and it's like, and it's funny, right? And then it's reported to one of the staff members up front. And one of the staff members up front, they were like, "Hell no, this is not happening." So they run in, they open the door, it's like, "You get out now, you pull your pants up, get out now," right? Meanwhile, back in the theater, there's a couple in maybe the third row towards the end when Riff and Magenta come in their spacesuits. So they're standing right next to them, and the girl is servicing her boyfriend. right there, and pretty much everybody could see it. And the guy who was the riffraff, instead of pointing the gun at Frank, is like pointing the gun down there, and the spotlights are pointed down. And so like the girl looks up, and the guy's like doing this, and she's a little embarrassed, and everybody in the audience gave them a standing ovation. So if you're coming to Rocky, and the staff didn't tell you this, if you're gonna have sex in the theater, not in the bathroom.
I want to fuck your sister.
I've got an itch to scratch. I need assistance. Touch me. I wanna be dirty. Really chilly, fulfill me. Creature of the night.
I've always had this very, not butchy, but just this very sort of boyish kind of flair. Like I grew up and I would wear baggy t-shirts and things like that. I've never really been a girly girl, but not to the point where I don't wear makeup and don't shave my legs and all that, but I've just been this kind of balance. In fact, that's why normally my name's Valerie, but that's why I call myself Val now, because it's a very gender neutral name. That's how I really see myself, is not really having a specific gender as far as, mentally and that sort of thing. I mean, physically, obviously I'm a female, but as far as internally, I just see myself as this mutual being. So in a lot of ways, Frank is very similar. He has a lot of feminine qualities as well as a lot of male qualities. I definitely see him as a very dominating sort of figure. So I'm able to put a lot of myself into playing Frank. And I'm really able to show a lot more of the real me, whereas a lot of times outside of Rocky Horror, I have to sort of kind of put myself in the mold of like what a girl would do and what a guy would do. I sort of just have to, in certain situations, stick to like being a girl. Whereas with Frank, I can really come out of my box and just really sort of explore the part of me that I feel like is more leaned towards being a male. So it's really a chance for me to let go of that and just explore that a little bit. It's definitely helped me discover a lot about myself as far as being a female Frank. Playing Frank-N-Furter in particular has affected me a lot in the real world, because his character, he's just so confident in himself and all that he is and stands for. With him saying, "Don't dream it, be it," the fact that he's just so comfortable being as bizarre and eccentric as he actually is. So it's almost like he, even though he's a fictional character, he's sort of implanted this sort of spark of courage inside of me, to where I almost, if I find myself in a situation where I have to be brave or stand up for myself or do something that's kind of outside of my comfort zone, I almost have to ask myself, well, what would Frank do? And then I can think to myself, well, you play Frank every weekend, you know exactly what he would do. And then I can kind of just clench my fist and get my game face on and be like, you know what? Meh. I don't really, insert whatever I would have to say.
And I realized
Shadow casting is a different game. It's like in dramatic theater, you're supposed to sort of create your circumstance, create your character, and just create. Whereas with Rocky Horror, it's sort of a different thing. You're mimicking what's on the screen, and I think that that's something that more people can do, and it's not to like belittle it as a craft or anything, because I think it's great fun and I think it's awesome, but I think that like people find it more accessible, so it's also it also kind of like takes a little less pressure off of you. Like you can have a little more fun with it, because at the end of the day, you're just sort of like backing up like what's going on the screen behind you. So it just sort of becomes this chance to like become a part of it rather than to like be the main focus of attention. So I think like people from all walks feel comfortable just stepping into it.
For me personally, I love impersonating because I like making myself people that people are already familiar with. Like everyone sort of knows who Michael Jackson is. Everyone, your Rocky fans know who Frank is. And I'm trying to think of who else I've been. I've done a couple of Marilyn Manson shows. I've done a couple of Lady Gaga shows, just different characters. But I like that because these are recognizable people. And if I can pull off impersonating them well enough, I feel that love that these people would actually feel. If I was actually Lady Gaga, I just feel that energy from the audience, and I just sort of feed off of it, and it's awesome. Whereas I'm not at the level of fame or whatever where I can just come out and people are like, oh my God, Val. But if I mask myself behind somebody like Michael or like Frank, then it's like, oh my God, Frank, or oh my God, Michael. I'm like, yeah, totally. And also too, like, obviously we have to do a lot to kind of alter our appearance somewhat. Like I always use an ace bandage to strap down my chest. I take a sock and I put it inside of another sock and I put that between two pairs of panties, and that's how I make the bulge. I do that for Michael as well because of the crotch grab. You gotta have something to grab. But obviously I say we, meaning myself and other female Franks. Some of us, we do things like this to alter our appearance. I also do an Adam's apple with makeup. And a lot of times that really helps too, just looking in the mirror and seeing the flat chest and seeing the outline in the underwear. It really helps us just morph into that male being. And I guess for me, the rest just sort of happens. You look at the way Frank walks and he doesn't really sway his hips the way a woman would. He tends to be very up and down and very sort of contained. So stuff like that I really had to work on, but once it's stuck into muscle memory, it just sort of happens. And I've reached a point now in playing Frank where I have audience members come up to me and they'll say, we had no idea you were a girl until the end at floor show when you lifted your arms up and we saw the ace bandage. They're like, we had no idea. It's just really cool. It's really cool the people you meet and just stuff like that. Some people might be like, oh, it's just Rocky Horror. It's just a Rocky Horror person. And you know, to some people it might be just Rocky Horror, but like to me, as a female Frank and just that, it's just so cool. There's a lot of people out there that it's definitely more than just Rocky too. Some people, they're just really drawn to that acceptance and that freedom that they get here. So people like that, like me, we just, stuff like that just really means the world to us. Changes our lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, your New York City Rocky Horror
I wanna go.